Or Matt up.
Hiya, Matt.
Hello, Jim.
Matt, you knob.
Also,
Matt,
just
you
call
knob.
you knob. I don't know. We've got a cross line. Yeah, that's Joe Martin. We're on a podcast with Haggers. We're just about to start.
Thank you to our three sponsors for supporting our podcast. Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, who offer fantastic catering services, Alexander Grace Law, who provide modern and client-led legal services, and SBE Furnishings, who offer high-quality furnishings and electrical items at fantastic prices.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Housecast. As I've no doubt you're aware, if you've logged in and you're listening to us, this is the Lowerhouse Cricket Club podcast, where we have some real characters on and we chat to them and just talk about funny stories and their times either at Lowerhouse or elsewhere. This evening's guest is our one and only Phil Haggerty, lad who's played at the club for a lot of years, a real character, plenty of stories about him, and just a genuine, lovely lad. Haggers, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, Jez. How are you? Evening, chaps.
We've got you on video, Haggers, so I'm just looking. You're so laid back. It's fantastic. You're almost horizontal.
And Jez is. So Jez is literally laid back.
Yeah. We've obviously got some hosts on who are helping me out with this podcast. So, Haggers, we'll go through the hosts and I'll come back to you. I think you mentioned off air you're a little bit disappointed that one of your good mates is not coming on and co-hosting this with you. But I'll come back to you about that and let me know what your thoughts are of why your mate's not on. So, Joe Martin.
Hello, James. How are you? Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, not too bad.
Good. Change your plan this time. I'm not going to ask you what you've been up to, what you're doing.
What a shame.
So many different messages in saying that the people switch off as soon as you come on with that. So, a slight change of plan. Joe Martin, what have you had for your tea?
I made a seafood risotto tonight.
In the West End room?
Not quite, no, at home. But yeah, no, I did a seafood risotto for everybody.
Oh, that sounds good. Right, we'll move on. Our other host, a fantastic lad, helps us out no end. Joe Beneducci, how's it going, Joe?
Good, thank you, Joey.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Don't
good.
know what I've had for my tea.
Yeah,
Pizza
you can
or
do.
pasta?
Pasta pizza.
I've had a prawn stir fry.
Oh, nice.
Oh, you've been well fishy, haven't you? You two.
Mm.
Well
Just
fishy.
the one tea tonight, Joe.
Yeah, but I had a pudding.
Oh, we've got another person coming on. I think
Might be an ambush here.
no, not at all. We all are. He'll be joining.
Feels like this is your life. You've not seen him for 30 years.
It's that lad in that wheelchair from Colne.
5 minutes in and it's been mentioned. Come on, Joe, they're coming. What? Who is it?
It's Gary Morehouse. He's just connecting to audio.
I don't think I've seen Gary for 30 years.
So we talked about someone's coming into the room. Has any of you heard of this Zoom bombing?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah. What's your understanding of it, Dooch?
It's where uninvited guests join a Zoom call.
That's right.
And disrupt it using various means.
Yeah, generally, listen to this, Joe Martin. Are you ready? Don't fall off your chair.
I'm ready.
The video on themselves having sex and just jump into someone's Zoom chat.
Wow, amazing! I'll have to look out for that. I don't mean as some kind of like voyeur. I mean, in case it happens in my meetings.
I heard a good one today on radio. It was saying pupils who are using Zoom for online learning are changing their names to Reconnecting.
Brilliant.
Good that.
Clever.
Yeah, they've done well. So, Haggers, you've said earlier you're a little bit nervous about this. What's your concerns?
I don't want to let the side down, Jess. listening to all these podcasts so far, it's been a good standard, hasn't it? So they've set an high bar, previous guests. So I don't want to let anybody down. We'll give it a go. I don't think we'll be breaking any records.
I don't know. There's some stories we can talk about, and I'm sure you won't let us down at all, Haggers. So let's just introduce another host. We haven't seen him for a few weeks. We've got the young Gary Morehouse dialed in. How are you going, Gaz?
Hey, good evening, everyone. You all right?
Yeah, we're very well, thank you.
Excellent. All right, Gary.
All right, Haggers, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
All right. Still got your shade of Autumn Fox going on, I see.
Yeah. It's a lot browner nowadays.
Excellent.
Reese Woodworth owned me for years, saying I was dyeing it brown.
Well, yeah.
Oh, no. It's just naturally changed. As they've matured, my hair colour's matured as well, I think. So.
But it's gone from light ginger to dark ginger.
Autumn Fox at one time, weren't it? So,
Autumn Fox. Well, anyway, so we'll go. We'll move on in the podcast. Welcome, Gaz. We've just gone through the introductions. Got Haggers on. What a great character he is. So looking forward to getting out some stories from him and what he's been up to, and and I think I've got to say, Adam will confirm this. But Haggers has we've had the most contact from people asking questions or wanting some queries clarified or asking questions of Haggers. So it should be interesting. So Phil, we'll have to be really careful. I don't call you Chris because I've known your dad for a long time. So we'll continue with Phil and with Haggers. Just in brief, just give us a bit of a resume of how you started playing cricket and you coming down to the cricket club, what you were up to and what you were going on.
Started playing jazz at junior school, really, because as you'll know, and probably a lot of other people know, there were no. My dad was a footballer. My dad played local league football for 30 years. So there were no cricket players in my family. On my mum's side of the family, my uncle, he was a big cricket fan. He watched a lot of cricket over at Rottenstall, but there were no. It wasn't as if my dad played. I think Joe said similar a few weeks ago. There were no real cricketing links in his family. So I started at junior school, and the guy that got me into it was a teacher at Lowerhouse called Dave Sayers, who was a great bloke, and he obviously saw a bit of something in me, whether it were a PE lesson or whether it were playing at break time. And he kind of nurtured me from there, really, because obviously there were a cricket club across the road, but I had not really any idea. Do you just turn up? Do you have to ring up first? Or so he kind of nurtured me along, really. And I actually went for a net at Bacup first because he were from Bacup. So I think just to kind of dip my toe in water, I think he took me over there just to get used to it and get a feel for it. And then obviously I liked it. I wanted to carry on playing. I was playing in school team. And only lived right corner on Kid Row Lane at my mum and dad's, so the natural thing to do were to have a walk round to Lowerhouse and see if we could get a game round there. So yeah,
Haggers, that's brilliant. Now that's because I would have convinced you'd have been best mates with someone who was Stanley's friend or someone who'd been down for a long time. So how old would you have been then? I mean, and it's great from this teacher to encourage you and push you to play cricket. How old would you have been then when you went to Bacup?
I think I'd have been about 10, because I'm pretty sure I played it under 13s when I was 10.
Right.
So
brilliant.
So Reg Wardle was coach.
Right.
Kevin Higgins, I don't know if Kevin and Reg did it at the same time, but Kevin was definitely around a couple of years later. But Reg was first coach that I remember down there, and I think it was quite early, really, that he said to me, "You're in the team." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I weren't expecting to get a game so early, and it were under 13s. In fact, I remember my first game because, like I said, there were no cricketers in my family, so it was kind of, right, Dad, I'm playing. Get down to Cockers like everyone used to, get some gear. The one thing he didn't forget to get me were a box. So my first game, And it's pairs cricket. So obviously when you're out, you're not out. You just swap ends. But I was batting with Gav Shields. So I'll never forget this. I think it were at church. I might be wrong. But I've got it flush in knack after a couple of balls. And it hurts enough when you've got a box on, doesn't it? Never mind when you haven't got a box on. I think the next ball or a couple of balls later, Gav's called me through for a quick single. I couldn't see because there were like tears streaming down my face. I was in absolute agony. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, never mind run a single. And Gav run me out. So that's how mine and Gav's relationship started, really. And
Can we just clarify that Gav ran you out?
Gav ran me out.
All right. Okay.
Well, I couldn't run.
That's not how he remembers it.
Well, surprise.
Right, dude, you've obviously got a bit of background around this. I think we could have a full podcast on the back of your first game, Haggers, because you've come out with a few comments there. You've been hitting the knackers, you've no box. You know, we've got to bring this up with Chris in future. Why on earth he's let his lad go at 11 or 10 or 11 to go and play proper cricket with a proper cricket ball with no box? So you get hitting knackers, but you face the next ball, is that right?
Yeah.
Your tears streaming.
It's a long time ago now, Jez. It's 27 years ago. So, but that's how I remember it. It must have been next ball or a couple of balls later. But I was in no fit state to run a single. And
no. So we move on from that. You know, like you said, you're a young kid. The most amazing thing you've said in all that story is that Gav Shields called you for a quick single. What the fuck's all that about?
Well, you know what Gav's
quick
like.
single,
right? Strike, didn't it?
Right. Was he similar shape than he is now?
No.
Oh, really? A lot leaner?
Yeah, a lot leaner. Yeah, I think Gav's 3 year older than me, 4 year older. So he'll have been he'll have been 13. Under 13,
really?
Yeah.
Is he that much older than you?
Yeah, well, everybody thinks that Gav and Stanley and Dooch are all the same age as me. It's quite insulting to me because one, I don't look it, they do, but two, I'm not.
Gav's 41, Phil. How old are you?
37.
There you go.
I might have even been 9. I might even been 9, unless Gav were 14 playing it under 13s. I don't know, but
yeah. No, that's a brilliant story, and that's the first time you've met Gav, who, you know, it's fair to say we laugh and joke about it, and we always, you know, we take the piss, but it's, you know, he's been a lifelong friend for yourself and for a lot of us, and that's the first time you met him. So how did you progress from there? What, you know, you clearly had an eye opener in your first game. How did you progress? Where did you, did you play many more games that season, and what happened to seasons after?
Can't remember much more, to be honest, Jez, up until under 15s, really.
Right.
You know, under 15s team at that time, we made up of a lot of lads from school. You know, Chris Aston had come along by then. Dave Enty were playing, Laurie Cryer, Chris Clare, Mark Campbell, Chumpers. As most people don't club know him as. We'll get on to Chumpers later. Right, Sam Trickett were playing. So my next memory is really at under 15s. You know, and I actually started out as a bowler. Thankfully, I didn't carry that on.
So you're under 15, right? So you're opening bowler in under 15s.
Yeah, and I think probably, you know, after a while, the batting took over really. You know, if anybody's ever seen me bowl, I've got I bowl off wrong foot for starters, so it's hard to generate any pace. No, I've got a strange action, so I think I realised it were going to give me a bit bad back when I was older, to be honest. So I just started, you know, I thought I'll be a batter.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I remember opening batting it under 15s. I played for the league team under 15s. Got man at match actually in a game for the league team at Rawtenstall 1 year. Johnny Clare and Keith Barker played in that team. So yeah, just obviously, you know, come away from bowling for obvious reasons. The main one I weren't right good at it, and started opening batting really. Just enjoyed batting. You know, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you start getting some runs, and you start, you know, developing, and all that age group start developing. I mean, I wasn't aware, and obviously I'll bring Gary in because Joe Martin won't remember at all. But I remember, I was aware that you're a little bit younger than the original Rugrats that were coming through, but I possibly don't appreciate that age group, that generation, if you will, of people you've just mentioned there. You know, some I obviously know them all and have been down the club with them all, but it's almost like the forgotten, 5-year generation there that went on, because there wasn't many from there who developed and came and developed themselves into senior cricket like you did. Can you see any reason behind that? Was there a bit of a void in pushing the people through, or with the original Rugrats taking all the spaces?
But you're right, Jez. There are only me and Chris Aston who come through from that, really. Chris don't play anymore, which is a shame because he was a good player with Chris, and he's not played for a long while. I think he last played when he left Lowerhouse, went to Reed. That's a good few years back that now. To be honest, Jez, I think you look at how it's set up now, and we've got a 4th team now. 3rd team is for for kids, for juniors to dip the toe in water and get used to longer format game. There were a big jump back then from playing under 15s, which were 20 overs on a Wednesday night, to all of a sudden, bang, you're playing 50 overs in 3rd team with a bunch of older lads. And I think that's where it was that, like you said, there were a void there really, and that's where we lost a lot. We lost a lot of players because, like I said, there were a group of about 7 or 8 of us there who could all play. Obviously, some of us, and we were all keen, but there were only 2 of us that come out of it really and played for for a decent amount of time.
Yeah, Gary, you'd have been around then, senior cricket and seeing what were going on. Can you recall why that, there's that 5-year gap where we didn't really get it? We've got these 7 or 8 original Rugrats that have come through, are all fighting for first team shops, and in the next 5 years we don't really get anyone through.
No, I don't know. It's all a bit vague, isn't it, that? I'd never really thought about it until you just highlighted it then, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's straight because I remember you. I mean, Sam Trickett, what a character! Is Sam still around? Does anyone know?
He's done really well for him. Yeah, he's done really well in Army, Sam.
Brilliant. Oh, that's good. That's good. We'll have to see him get this to him. So he's got a shake take because he was a proper character, weren't he? He was a real live wire, little wicket keeper that was absolute bonkers. I know he got in a bit of trouble, but he's good on him. Good on him. So then you've progressed through there. Duke, you're Joe Martin. I know you probably weren't even born, Joe Martin, but anything you want to bring up before we move on to senior cricket?
When he said his debut was 27 years ago, that was the year I was born.
Yeah.
So my recollection of that time is limited, to say the least.
I had to double check myself when I was saying that.
That's a long time ago.
I guess my question would have been when he eventually went into the 3rd 11. I guess Jez would have been who would have been the captain at that stage, because I've genuinely got no idea what was the setup like in the 3rds and stuff like that.
Well, like I said, I really struggled with going from playing 20 overs on a Wednesday night to, I can't remember, I'm pretty sure it was 50 overs in 3rd team back then. And I struggle with that because I get a little bit bored fielding now. Obviously, Joe probably have a little smirk at that, but back then, when I was younger, I just found it absolutely tedious. I couldn't be doing with it at all. Batting, I loved it, but fielding side of it, I couldn't be doing with it. But I think I'm pretty sure Phil Aston was captain.
Right. Okay.
Obviously. Phil, very sadly not with us anymore. Great bloke, and he was great with young lads. I remember him being great with young lads coming through at the time. So I think me and Chris will have got into 3rd team round about the same time. Chris Aston, and I'm pretty sure Phil was captain. But I'll be honest with you, I can't remember playing a lot of 3rd team cricket. I don't think I did, to be honest. I think I played a few games because, to be honest, back then, 2000. Around about 2000, 2001, we didn't have a lot of players, did we? We didn't have the amount of juniors coming through. So pretty quickly into 2nd team. One thing I do remember about playing for 3rd team, and we played at Aki. This was probably my only memory of playing at 3rd team, so I couldn't have got any runs. But we played at Aki. We were off for a rain break, or rather into, and Phil Aston's phone rang, And back in the day when not many people had mobiles, really, it was his work mobile. So Phil Hastings' phone rang. Phil's at one end of the dressing room. Gav Shields is sat next to his phone. So straight away, Gav picks it up and answers, "Hello, Phil Hastings' porn parlour." So straight away, Phil shoots across room, grabs it off him, and it weren't a personal call. It were a client who were calling. Obviously about a contract or an order. Phil hit the roof. He went absolutely berserk. So that's one thing that I do remember. That stuck in my mind. Phil Hastings' phone parlour. It didn't go down well with Phil. Typical Gav. But yeah, like I said, sorry, Joe.
Yes, Gav's name's cropping up a hell of a lot in these episodes. So we are gonna have to strong arm him to coming on, aren't we? Because he's probably the most mentioned person who's not been on yet.
He needs a right to reply, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He does, definitely.
Even if it's just no comment, we should get him on. Jez, this might be for a different podcast, but what was the kind of situation where Phil started to drop down into the seconds and captain the thirds and stuff like that?
It was around. I mean, I haven't got any notes around it now, but from memory, and Gary might be able to assist a little bit. It was around the Cameron year, and when we were getting very much into the. We train hard, we practice a lot. Phil was, I have no idea how old he will have been then. Phil be, if he was still alive, he's probably 10 years older than me, I bet. He was older than Stan.
Oh, really? Right.
Yeah. It was. I think it was. I mean, it'd be on the Lancs League website.
Right, in 1954 he was born.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So he's a lot. He's 25 years older.
Lies.
I thought
25 minutes.
I thought, Jesus, Jez's math isn't right there.
No, so he's 9 years older than me. Or, he would be 9 years older than me if he was still with us. But it got to Phil was fantastic in the way that, he played his cricket and was a fantastic cricketer. But when he started to deteriorate in his fielding, and he wasn't batting in the top 5 or so, he was more than happy to go and play in the second. It was never a difficult conversation. And he was obviously still a great player. And then, as Haggers has alluded to there, he would play in the thirds if they were short initially. And then, I think for at least a season, if not a couple of seasons, Haggers, he captained the thirds, did Phil. And and he'd always got a big car. He was, he did good company, a sales rep, and he'd have a decent vehicle so he could run people around. He did so much for the club back in that time, did Phil, and, contributed to, the first team and the rest of senior cricket.
I didn't quite realise how long and I'm sorry, Haggers, this is but I didn't quite realise how long he played, Jez, because I didn't think he was that old. I didn't think he was that old, but he had a 20-year plus career.
Yeah.
And he played well into the 2000s. I can remember him playing into the 2000s and captain.
Yeah. So when we look at it, we've got a fantastic stalwart of the club, done all this for the club, and little Gav Shields takes a piss out of him, who's done jack shit and won't even come on podcast.
I know.
He did. He did used to get a bit stressed at times, did Phil. But looking back, totally understandable. You just had a bunch of young painted arses in the team, and I know from captaining seconds a few years ago, and you've got all these 18, 19-year-old empty heads in the team. They drive you up wall. Absolutely drive you up wall. They're great lads, but they drive you mad.
Full of testosterone, full of last night's beer, think they know everything. It's just a typical Dex Stansfield, isn't it? That's what you were all like, and we've all been there. Yeah, we've all been there. So it's so you've I mean, that's a good story with Gav, and let's see if he wants to come back and either dispute it or accept that that's what he's done. And I think you've done yourself down a little bit, Haggers. You said I didn't play in the thirds much and I got in the seconds. I remember you get runs in the thirds. You were getting, as you were maturing, you were getting taller, as I remember, and you were opening the batting, you were playing straight. You're a very correct cricketer, so you were getting runs. So then you get in the second team. What would you been then, 16-ish?
So I probably played in seconds. I'd say probably got in definitely 2000. Probably the year before, 99, I'd say. Probably about 15. Yeah. Probably played a few games when I was 15. Made my debut under Shez, which were definitely an experience. I think it were at East Lancs, and the reason I remember it is I was fielding at mid-on. So bearing in mind, this is my first game at second team. Knew very little of Shez. He knew my dad well, but I knew very little of him personally. So I'm fielding at mid-on. The ball's come to me at mid-on, and I've just done what you do. I've picked it up, pretended to shine it on my pants and thrown it back to the bowler. All of a sudden, Shez is at first slip. He's absolutely erupted. And I'm stood there thinking, what is his problem? What's he on about? So I didn't know the big thing at the time, and this is like in international cricket. This is in international cricket, but Shez has decided to adopt this approach in second team. Is that no matter where the ball goes, it always goes back into the keeper. But I didn't know this. Nobody had explained this to me. If it had cropped up in Shez's talk before the game, I obviously must not have been listening, but I'm pretty sure I didn't hear it. And he's absolutely bollocked me for not throwing the ball back to the keeper from mid-on in a second team game at East Lancs. So, yeah, a bit of a baptism of fire, really. But once again, Shez, what a character. Obviously could play as well.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a running joke about Shez, which I never heard him say personally, but I've always found funny, is that no matter where we were playing away, so whether it were Burnley, Todmorden, Cole, Ramsbottom, Shez always wanted to stop off on the way home at Stafford Life and have a pint. So, have you heard that one, Dooch?
Yeah, it were a long running joke. Pint at Stafford Life on the way home, like you say, regardless of where we were playing.
Yeah. But, great character, Shez. Like along with third team, I can't really remember much of them early third team games. But I don't think I were opening batting. I think I were coming in down in middle order, and then probably season after 2001, started opening batting for whatever reason. People might have been playing it first team who normally opened or couldn't play for injury or whatever. And that's when I remember starting to get a couple of scores. And when I say scores, I were at that age where I classed a score as, a 20 or a 30. I weren't thinking of 50s and 60s as scores in seconds. And I think basically I got a 28 and a 33. One of them were at Nelson. And then on the back of that, I was picked for first team. So completely different world to nowadays where, these young lads are going into the first team with, a couple of seasons in second team under the belt. And, Joe will know all about that. Johnny Whiteheads, Matt Walkers, they're going in there with some proper cricket, some proper experience and runs and wickets under the belts. Yeah, 33 and a 28 and picked for first team off back of that. So
brilliant. I mean,
how old were you then?
17, Dutch. So I'd never had a 50. I'm sure I never got one in thirds, and I definitely didn't have one in seconds leading up to being picked at first. Because I remember my first 15 seconds, and it were after I played for the first team. So it was completely different world back then. But it needs must. If somebody showed a bit of promise, and I suppose you had to get them in there and see what they were made of, really, and whether you felt it was too soon or not.
Yeah, and I mean, and you're saying that about the current crop, or we could maybe refer to them as the last decade of players. As we speak to them, they've had some big scores, and the way the coaching's gone and the training and the discipline around it all. But the good players don't play 10 years in the second team and then get in the first team anymore. So you've played there for a couple of seasons and then you've managed to get in. Sorry, I missed. What year would it have been then when you were 17 and you made your debut?
2001, that, Jess. Remember, Dave. So nobody look at scorecard. In fact, I don't think it says on the scorecard because I've looked at it before. But I don't think anybody will guess who was captain when I made my first team debut.
2001.
Yeah.
So it should have been. I think it should have been Matt. I think Nicky did 2000, and Matt took it over in 2001. So you're obviously saying Matt wasn't the captain. Chippy?
No.
I'm just trying to think who would have been Matt's vice.
Rock, maybe?
I played because there were a few missing.
All right.
When I tell you who's captain, you'll think how many were missing.
Go on then, tell us.
Frank Entwistle.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, so Frank the captain.
I've got a few devices going on here. Joe Martin, can you get that scorecard up?
Yeah, absolutely.
We missed that on Frank's podcast, didn't we?
Yeah. You never mentioned that. So that was against Rishton Haggers. Yeah.
May.
Yeah, May. So our team was Nicky Hope, Swifty, John Kent.
Nicky played.
Yeah.
Why did Frank captain?
Probably didn't want to do it, I guess. Blaise, Dave Worley, Frank, Proc, you, Dave Kaprinski. Very difficult to say. Mike Sheridan, and Paul Stanley.
Shez. Young Shez.
Young Shez.
Yeah. You were against Rishton, weren't it, Joe?
Yeah.
Rishton, I remember Rishton had a really good side. Peter Sleep were playing, weren't they?
Yeah, captain.
Because Peter Sleep gave me absolute dog's abuse. Honestly, it was horrible. So I'd come in at, I think, 7 or 8. And obviously, Rishton lads were thinking, right, we'll wrap this up soon enough and get in bar and get off home. And Peter Sleep were at short leg. They had a spinner bowling for him. I can't remember his name. Peter Sleep was at short leg. And honestly, I was scared. This big Australian bloke. So I was there 17. And he's effing and blinding at me. Get out, you little shit. I'm ready to go home and all this. And effing this and effing that. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ. Thinking about I've never experienced anything like it. I thought once again, that was a real baptism of fire.